Finally, a source of raw, real, and honest information on healthcare issues that matter most. Welcome to BS Free MD. From the latest medical information to how to stay sane as a doctor or a patient, no subject is taboo, no BS is allowed. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Doctors May and Tim Hindmarsh.
Wow, this is exciting. This is like our first relocation of our studio back to our house because we now have St. Elon's.
I love it in here.
Starlink.
So much more room, and the sound is better.
We have a big desk here. It's in our house. Thank you, Starlink.
Starlink, if you can get it, run with both feet.
Yeah, but if you live in a city, you can just get commercial. If you have
know.
fiber, you're totally good.
Fiber. Well, happy Thursday. We're back on the airwaves, and I'm super excited about today's episode because it is time to get fit. No excuses. And finally got my favorite trainer that I obsess over and kind of stalk on social media. Her name is
Cesar Milan. Oh, no, you mean physical trainer, not dog trainer.
I know.
Different kind of trainer.
Exactly. Human trainer. The human whisperer.
I bet you she'd get upset though if you peed in the house. Similar to Caesar.
Poor Cori. So Cori Lefkowitz is the owner of Redefining Strength. If you haven't heard of this, run now to your computer, look it up. I follow her on Facebook initially, but she's on Instagram. She has great YouTube videos, and she is a personal trainer and fitness guru who has cured. I haven't actually emailed her directly until we connected for the show, but I've had so much orthopedic trouble. I'm a walking nightmare that I've had some issues that a bunch of PTs couldn't figure out my hip and knee. And finally, I'm like, screw this. I'm going to follow what she's doing because it makes sense. And it worked. So she really understands how one part of the chain can affect the other part of the chain and offers sound advice for strength training and fitness and diet. So I really was excited to get her on the show to share her thoughts and ideas.
Don't you know, diet and fitness don't matter. Only the vaccine matters.
Oh, I thought only forks matter. Anyway. So Cori is super upbeat, super positive. You're going to love her. You'll get to get her vibe from the show as well as looking at her stuff online. And I will link all that in the show notes. So I guess that's about as good of an intro.
Yeah, I think so.
It
really is a great episode.
But before we get into that and you can hear our talk with her, our sponsor this week is MR Insurance. Michael Relvis is a CFP professional and insurance agent committed to helping physicians nationwide with their term, life, and disability insurance needs. He provides an objective, transparent, and education-focused process that aims to help physicians make prudent decisions and avoid overcomplicating things. He exclusively offers own occupation disability insurance policies for residents, fellows, and attending physicians. We really like Michael and know he's got your best interest at heart when it comes to disability insurance. We know he'd be happy to help you with whatever your needs are. So you can find Michael at Dr. Podcast Network you can find him at mrinsurance.com/BSFreeMD or contact him at 800-817-4522. And then I'll put the correct link in our show notes as well. Sort of messed that up. All right. Hang on tight. This one's fun. All right. I am super excited for this episode today because we have my favorite fitness trainer person I semi-stalk on Instagram and Facebook, Cori Lefkowitz here. Thanks for joining us today.
It is my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
So, obviously, as I was, mentioning, I emailed earlier. Actually, it was a post that you put up that really caught my eye, that started our conversation and getting you on the show, which was about the the date, the average date when people pack it in and quit working out. We get into the new year, people have these goals and resolutions, and they're all fired up. And Tim and I were talking about, because we have we have friends that own a gym and they're trainers, and I was like, oh, I wonder, when people really quit. And so we're sort of thinking, oh, it's got to be
like June the 30th.
You're optimistic. But then, today I read your post. So I guess it was yesterday, right? January 19th is the magical date. And I was like surprised it was that early. Because, I think as physicians or athletes, you always hear things about the 6 weeks. You kind of got to make it to 6 weeks, and it's a habit and a routine. So, yeah, I mean, January 19th, who would think? Where's that study from?
So I actually commented back, it was data. They reviewed data. So Strava has their, 8 billion, 8 million, now I can't remember the amount, but users. And so they assessed when they most often fall off. And they found that January 19th, and it varies slightly by year, but it's around January 17th to January 19th is the date that they always fall off. And it got me to thinking, because I expected it to be much further out too. I was like, okay, people are motivated with the new year. But I actually think that the New Year's motivation makes that date they fall off sooner than it would be at another time of year. So, like, if someone's making a habit change, even in the summer or whatever else, I guarantee you, if we sort of looked at that, it would be a longer time they stick with it versus New Year's. Because New Year's, they feel, well, let's face it, we've all not necessarily been as consistent over the holidays. We might have put on some holiday weight gain. It's colder potentially. There's a lot of different things going on, and we're really, really motivated when the new year hits. But I think we go so 0 to 60 in those first few days, and we create all these unsustainable habits that it makes that date where we sort of fall off a lot sooner, just because we're overwhelmed with the changes, or maybe we've gotten so many different things and we don't know where to start with them. And so it's one of these things that we never really build that momentum. Or again, if we have like gone 0 to 60, it's like all of a sudden we're like, okay, I can't do this forever, right? And so we hit that date pretty soon in where we realize we've overwhelmed ourselves with the changes versus actually looking for something sustainable. So yeah, it's kind of sad it's so soon, but if you've made it past that, yay.
Yeah, yay! I made it. I'm doing good.
Right, but that's why, I mean, this is BS Free MD, so we will call BS on lots of things today. But it's the whole BS of new year, new you. Okay, so what is a new you? Okay, so let's see. I smoke 2 packs of smokes. I drink half a bottle of Jack a day. I'm 75 pounds overweight, and I kick the dog.
Are you sharing all your secrets?
No, it's a for instance person. It's so you look at it, you go, okay, so starting January 1st, you keyed into this just brilliantly. So starting January 1st, I'm going to quit smoking, I'm going to quit drinking, I'm going to quit kicking the dog, and I'm going to change what I eat.
Yeah.
And of course, it's impossible because
I think
you haven't prioritized what you need to
fail
right
away. It's too much pressure.
I always tell clients, I'm like, it's a new year, it's not a new you. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but we're always starting from our current situation. We're always whoever we are. And the more we can actually think about making changes based on who we are, the better those changes will be. Like, the more I started to look at myself when I made changes and be like, okay, I like dessert. Like, every time I would try and like cut, get shredded, whatever else, I would cut out dessert first because I knew it wasn't the healthiest thing for me. I knew it was probably the worst thing for me. But the thing is it's something that was really a part of my lifestyle and my routine. So when I finally like just was like, okay, I'm going to track macros and I'm going to put my dessert in first. And then I worked everything backwards around it. I found something that I could actually get consistent with. And then from there, I started to make healthier tweaks to some of my desserts. I realized there were certain foods that would trigger me to want more versus be sustainable so that I could stay consistent. But I also realized that over the year, I was probably eating healthier, even including this not clean food in my diet, because other meals had to include vegetables and fruits and different things like that to balance out the macros. But it's one of these things that the more you can realize, hey, I'm starting from this current situation, the better you're actually going to be able to make changes that are sustainable long term. Not to mention, I think it also gets us out of the starting over Monday mentality. If you start to realize, hey, you're starting with whoever and whatever you are, right? So that whole idea of during the holidays, it doesn't count. I'm going to start over in the new year. Well, actually, you're going to start over a lot further behind than if you did at least the minimum to keep moving forward. So I like to also remind people that you are who you are. The more you embrace that, the more you find the ways to make changes that are actually sustainable to your lifestyle versus if you're a carb lover going keto, the better off you're actually going to be, because there is no one size fits all, no one perfect diet. And the more you can say, hey, what's actually a change that's right for me, the better you're going to be.
Yeah.
I
Totally
love,
the truth.
yeah, I love that, because there's a lot of sort of self-deprecating demonization that goes in there. So you're a carb lover. Well, maybe you're a carb lover because you have thousands of years of ancestors that grew up in the bread area of Ukraine or whatever the case may be, right? And so it may not necessarily be a bad thing, and that's what always gets me about diet. There's no more black magic in all of medicine than in diet, because it becomes a religion, not science.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't care if you're high carb, low fat. If you're eating less calories and you feel great and you have energy and your appropriate body weight and the appropriate blood sugar and all of that, who cares how you get there? I mean, if you're healthy and you feel good and your blood pressure is better and all of these things that we can, monitor are better. I don't care if you got there through keto, intermittent fasting, high, what's the Mick Jagger diet? The guy's almost 80 years old. He's still dancing
It's
around on
probably
stage for
cocaine,
no,
Tim.
it's 12 miles a day and high carbs. I mean, he eats a super high energy, complex carb diet and
he
exercises
and
a ton.
he does like
okay,
aerobics on the stage. Yeah.
but somehow,
well, I mean, there's so many things that factor in, right? Our
Right.
activity level, as you said, our genetics, not to mention like food is not just fuel anymore. We have to like stop trying to think that it is, or try and push people and tell them that it is. It is enjoyment. It is social gatherings. And the more we can also find the balance knowing those things, the more sustainable it's going to be. I like do feel like a lot of times when I'm talking to other trainers, they're thinking about what their perspective of it is, the eating clean. Like they want to eat chicken and broccoli. They want to do a figure competition. I'm like, but your client might be overweight and might right now be eating pizza and chicken fingers and fries, right? And so just by getting them to eat a healthier version of a pizza or put a side salad on there, that's going to make changes. And then on top of that, if they can't stick with keto, no matter how fabulous keto might be for them, they're not going to get results. They're not going to see their blood work improve. They're not going to see overall changes. They're going to be even stressed out with it, which could take you down the whole rabbit hole of how stress impacts everything.
Right. No, I mean, I used to see this, in my former life as a family. That's what I tell people. I'm a recovering family doctor. I used to I delivered tons of babies, and you'd get these poor women that would come in and they would be just weeping. Their kid is freaking out because literally the baby's starving to death because for whatever reason, they weren't able to nurse. And I'm like, okay, here's the deal. Yes, it's better if your child is nursed, but this isn't some this isn't a cult. It's not a breastfeeding cult. You're stressed, your baby's stressed, everyone's stressed, no one's sleeping. That's why God made formula. It's okay. You haven't quit on your baby. But I just saw a post a few weeks ago from a young mother, and it's like when doctors say that you're quitting on the mother. Well, your baby's starving. I mean, there's a balance. Eating a little bit more broccoli and a little bit less, chicken wings, probably a positive change, right?
Yeah.
Right. And life is such a continuum, like with everything. There's not really good and bad. I mean, obviously there are good, better and worse things, but there's so much of a continuum. And the more we can see that and know that we're going to swing along it as we go through life and embrace those little changes, the better off we're going to be. And it's like when we make ourselves feel guilty about things too, we don't even recognize the mindset that creates, how much that really destroys things. And it gets into like the chicken or the egg, right? Is that mother so stressed now too that that's causing problems? Or is the problem causing the stress? And it doesn't really matter actually which came first. What matters is that you release some of the stress, because that could improve the situation, whether or not it's then her bonding with her baby better as she feeds it formula or she breastfeeds. And I'm not even going to go into that because that is not my area of expertise, formula and whatnot. But I see that even with like fitness and diet, like people make themselves feel guilty for like a little slip up with something. And I'm like, well, what really derailed everything wasn't that you had a cookie. It wasn't even that you messed up your macros for the day. It was the fact that you said you failed. Then you ate 20 cookies instead of just the one. And then the next day you don't get back on it, or the day after that you don't get back on it. If instead you were just like, hey, that cookie was delicious, and then you ate the rest of your meals for the day or did what you could to work it into your macros, and then move forward the next day saying, hey, why did I eat that? Like, was that out of stress? How could I handle stress better? And use it as a learning experience. Like, all of that is going to add up to the consistency that really leads to results. I mean, we're human. We are perfectly flawed, but we are definitely not perfect.
I like what you said about food getting away from the term now, food is not just fuel, because it's interesting. I think it's one of those things that's morphed, because we definitely use that term as clinicians to try to motivate people to lose weight. Some of us can look at it as just fuel, because we don't really obsess about food or even think about it till we're like starving and dying. That I'm one of those people. It's like, I love food. I love a good meal, but for the most part, I'm not like thinking ahead or planning. And other people I know just live
That's why
from
people
meal to meal.
hate you.
But I think it was one of those things terms that we would use to try to motivate people. Just look at it as fuel. But you're right. I mean, look at society and where we've come from. I mean, back from when we were agricultural societies, and people would gather in potlucks on, every Sunday in their church groups, or holidays are focused around that. I mean, you just can't get away from social gatherings, often focus on food. And I know different cultures might be different. I don't know. In Norway, they probably gather and go cross-country skiing instead. But because we can't get away from that, it's, I think, just changing the narrative and helping people make healthier choices, that food is a social thing. And how do you...
Right. But think of this. Okay. Think of this, because everyone brings different baggage, and everyone has destructive ways with which they deal with stress or life or grief or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So think of it. You have a patient that's 50 pounds overweight, tipping into type 2 diabetes. Right. And the only place they find comfort from their, formerly abusive father and now abusive husband is ice cream and cake. Right. So that's actually like a huge anchor of security in a completely messed up world and psyche. And then we walk in there arrogantly and say, well, it's just fuel. Why is that person going to change? Because now you've just scared the living hell out of them. It's like the only place I find comfort is going to be gone. And so you've actually said a true statement from a metabolic perspective, and you've entirely set the patient up for failure.
Yeah, I guess it depends on you. Now we're getting to the whole psychology of it. And, if they're
but
medicating with
psychology.
food.
It's all
It
psychology.
is.
Yeah.
It's all psychology. Like, the thing is like, I tell clients when they come into my programs, I'm like, we're going to address action changes, habit changes. But none of these matter if the mindset behind them doesn't change. Like, even when it comes to like food logging, if you're telling yourself, well, I'm doing the food logging for this program, but I'm never going to do it after this, you're never going to do it after this. Instead, you've got to change the mindset, understand why it's valuable, why you would use it in the future, why you might choose to stop it at some point, but you've got to get in the mindset of it's valuable. And I think when you have someone come in who they are emotionally eating, like, it isn't a habit swap. Like, we can tell them food is fuel, and they might be like, well, yeah, I've been trying to stop all these times. And that just adds to the frustration. It adds to them wanting to give up. It adds to them wanting to have more cake. Instead, it's like, if you say, okay, I totally get that. Like, we all seek comfort in different things. This is your comfort outlet. So next time you find yourself seeking comfort in this, what's one thing you can do instead? Or, hey, instead, do you think part of it's that you also feel guilty for having this indulgence? If so, why don't we change some of the other things that you're eating first? Why don't we just make it a smaller portion? Why cut it out? Because I think a lot of times we do go to cutting out the thing we want the most. And the second, like, you tell yourself you can't have something, at least this is the way it is for me. If I tell myself I can't have something that I haven't even been thinking about, all of a sudden I want that freaking thing. It doesn't matter. Like, all of a sudden I want it. I haven't had it maybe in years, but now I want it. And all of a sudden, I'm focused on that instead of just being like, well, I can have it. Like, for me, that was the freeing thing of starting to track my food, starting to learn about macros, is that nothing is technically off limits. Yeah, obviously, there are going to be things you'll put in, but
I know for some people, I think.
Well, heroin is off limits.
Stop.
Hey, I'm not going to judge. I'm not going to judge.
And M&Ms, because I think for some people it is. I mean, this is my bias and what I've learned over the years and from friends and patients, but I'm not going to say compared to alcoholism, but for some people, I think that there are certain things that it's like a slippery slope. So I have a girlfriend, and she cannot do the M&Ms or the she'll be studying, and if she just says, okay, I'm going to have this little cup full, it's okay, I can have this, she can't turn it off. And so she basically just says that is like a no-go for me. And I think that's not everybody, obviously.
Yeah, but it's not all refined sugar. That's the difference. You can have a piece of fruit.
But she's not saying she can't have it. she's recognizing that it's a slippery slope, so that if she's
Right.
going to indulge in it, like I have stuff like that too. Like for me, it's like the pint of Ben and Jerry's. I'm sorry, they mislabeled it. It is one serving. It is not four servings. It is one serving. Okay, well, let's just be clear here. But for me, I know if I have that, I'm going to eat the entire thing. I will not stop. And so I save that for a day where I might be okay with that because I still want to have it. And a lot of times then I actually don't have it because I've had other satisfying things. But then I found like Halo Top help, or yogurt with different granola help. So the thing is finding out what you're sort of craving with that, whether or not it's the habit of the time you eat or the fact that you do want something sweet and that is satisfying to you, whatever it is, you can find little ways to have replacement things. Like for me too, even knowing if I have candy in the house, right, I'll want to go for a piece, even if I'm not really craving it because it's there. But that's only if it's in my cabinet. I found if I put it in the freezer for some reason, it's going to be good forever now, so I can have it later, even though it'd probably be good forever because it's processed candy in my cabinet, right? But the little switch in my head all of a sudden made it good forever. In the freezer, I don't need to have it because it'll be there when I want it later. And so I think it's even diving in again. Like what I like to have clients do is anytime something comes up, like they stress eat or they skip a meal or whatever else it is, they skip a workout, whatever sort of emotional situation led to the unplanned deviation from what they wanted, it's always the next day, later on that day, whenever you can, reflect. Why did this happen? What can I learn from this to better improve upon it the next time when it comes up? And that's like how I found out the freezer thing, right? You know, it's like how you find out the trigger foods. It's not that you're going to indulge in every food. There might be trigger foods. It's not that you're going to always not let stress get in the way, and sometimes you're going to overeat or sometimes you're going to skip your workout. But the thing is life is about constantly learning and improving. And a lot of times when we reflect, we'll be like, okay, so when I get into that stressful situation, I want to skip my workout. What can I do instead? Well, I know I can do 5 minutes. And 5 minutes might only be 5 minutes. It might actually lead to more, you know, or in that situation where it is really stressful, what I've got to do is shift my workouts, or I've got to plan ahead knowing that this week of the year is super stressful and go to a 3 day a week minimum over 6, right? So I think it's just about also knowing that there will be things that you can't necessarily have or don't choose to include because they do set off more, but constantly seeing everything that happens as that learning experience to adjust your mindset and really tweak your lifestyle to be best for you.
This is awesome because you know
yes.
I think, and actually this is the question that we were going to talk about. Really, is what's not more important, but we always is it where does weight and fitness get in? Because you always hear people, I'm working out and I'm not losing weight, and then of course I think by now people know that it's not just the exercise, it's diet and what you're putting in your mouth. And so people need to focus on what they're eating, not just how many miles they can log walking or how many calories they're trying to burn. Because as we've told people, it's really easy.
No, you're not gonna.
It's really easy to just eat those 1,500 calories like really quickly, but to burn 1,500 calories
is 15 miles
is really tough.
Well, people, and that's like I've told this to patients. I said, look, working out. Any amount of working out that you're capable of doing is going to, based on actual evidence, is worth maybe 1% of your body mass.
Yeah.
If you're lucky. Unless you are Michael Phelps and you can do 8,500, like 11,000 calories of swimming, 12 miles a day at near world record pace. Yes, then you can go to the Chinese buffet for 3 hours.
Yeah. And
otherwise you can't. Otherwise it's 100% what you put in your mouth.
I would try to simplify it so that, in terms they could understand, like I would, they see me and I'd say, okay, I could drink this can of soda, which is about 150 calories, or I'm going to have to run over a mile at my fitness to burn that off. It's going to take a lot more work. And so
your body is really efficient at holding on to energy. That is a problem.
Yeah. So that's true, right?
True.
I mean,
yeah.
The weight loss really is more in the kitchen than
So I don't fully like saying that, to be honest. I like to remind people that it's the systems and how everything works together, because how you plan everything together can make you more efficient, because it's not just about working harder, right? It's not just about cutting calories lower. It's not just about doing more working out. And I'm going to take a slight tangent off of that. I would just destroy every fitness tracker that ever existed if I could, because I think seeing our workouts as the calories burned is really where the issue lies, because workouts should not be in any way, shape, or form about burning calories. They're about moving better. They're about building lean muscle so that you have a healthier metabolic rate when you're resting, so that you're functionally strong until the day you die, right? That is what they are for. If you have more lean body mass, you can eat more technically too, because you need more calories to survive. So working out should be about moving better, feeling better, about building lean muscle. I do not care how many calories you burn, because honestly, those fitness trackers are so inaccurate. A, B, they will just tell you to do more and more to burn more and more calories. And often you'll get a higher calorie, well, not often, you will get a higher calorie burn by doing cardiovascular activities over strength training activities, which again, it's not really strength or cardio. There's a continuum, totally separate subject, but it's one of those things that they'll skip the strength in favor of cardio. I've seen it time and time again in the gym where people skip the strength classes to get more MEPs, get more calories burned on their watch by doing the cardio classes. But A, those are inaccurate, and B, they're trying to out exercise their diet. So it's where the whole system has to work together. So
and that doesn't translate into health necessarily. I mean, you can be skinny, flabby, burning all these calories, but if you don't have muscle mass and strength, I mean, that's not healthy either.
And if your diet isn't dialed in, all of your training in the gym isn't going to pay off the way you want. If you're under fueling, you're not going to build that lean muscle mass. If you're not getting enough protein, if you're not getting enough carbs to repair, if you're not getting enough fat to keep hormonal balance, right? There's different ratios you want to use to make sure that you're getting the best results possible. But it's like one of these things that even if you don't eat enough, you're not going to perform well. And like the funniest thing too is when people go into weight loss, there was really this case of doing more over focusing on efficiency of systems and how everything's working together, right? Where I'll see clients cut their calories super low. Oh, it's just calories in versus calories out. I need to eat less. Oh, I need to train more to also create that deficit. And all of a sudden, they're ending up not getting as much out of their training sessions. Their body has metabolic adaptations that happen because our body, as you said, likes to conserve energy, right? So you start burning fewer calories actually at rest because your body's like, what the heck are you doing to me? And so then all this hard work and eating less, you're just training your body to eat less, and you're not going to see results, and you might even get softer. And then you're going to end up losing lean muscle because you're starving, and then you're going to have a lower metabolic rate, and it's going to make it harder when you diet the next time, right? Because it's all the systems, right? And it's one of these things too that as much as diet, yes, I will go back to this and agree with you. Diet is 100% the main focus when you're starting to lose weight. If you don't dial in that workout component, you're not going to see those results sustained as well. And studies have shown that when you dial in both together, that's the time we see the best results long term, just because you do need that movement, you do need that muscle mass. All of that really helps and aids in that overall lifestyle balance. But again, like, I don't think you can fully out diet your exercise routine or out exercise your diet. They really do need to work together if you want the best results in terms of looking lean, performing well, moving well until the day you die. Sorry, that was my whole rant on this.
No, it's perfect. I feel like taking up the offering and singing a hymn, but that's another story. The thing that it always gets me is the moving well, because I started running when I was 19. I started running marathons when I was 28, and then I ran 12, and so I still had to act, because I'm built like a fire hydrant. So to be lean enough, light enough to really get my marathon times down, I actually had to be kind of hungry all the time. And then, so, I'd run 35 or 40 miles a week, and then we'd go to the gorge every weekend, and I'd windsurf for 7 or 8 hours over a couple days. So I was in good shape because I was actually not going to the gym, but when I was windsurfing, that was like total isometric, total body workout. It was awesome. But then as you get older, you start to realize, man, all that not doing squats and not doing lunges and not going to the gym.
And not stretching.
Stretching.
We'll get into that one later. Go ahead.
But not stretching it, not stretching a muscle, not moving up. This is what I think. I think, you look at the data, stretching before a workout makes zero difference. But activating a muscle through its full range of motion is a totally different story. And when you don't, like when you're running, your hamstrings get tight when that's your primary activity, because you never move that muscle through its entire range of motion. You never really actually activate it. Well, and
I'm chomping at the bit right now to call you out on a few things
when I did that,
that,
it was amazing. When I started doing squats in HIIT class, I'm like, holy crap, my back doesn't hurt anymore. Like, where did that come from? And I'm like, okay, it makes sense. You're activating the muscle through its entire range of motion, and you're stressing it to a degree, and you're stretching it. But this, these gomers at the beginning of a marathon, like touching their toes 10 times, and they think it's going to make a difference. I'm sorry, I call BS on that one.
What's Cori got to say?
Well, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit and then call you out on a few things. But so I'm gonna go back to what you said about even getting older and like having the aches and pains add up. And I call it the leaky ceiling effect. Okay. A lot of times we blame age for things that are actually accumulating. We just don't realize it until there's actually the leak dripping down, right?
Right.
So a lot of times it is you not doing the mobility work for years and years, and then finally you can't get away with it when you really should have been getting away with it in the first place. Uh, I 100% agree with you about activation. I think it is the most underutilized component of prehab work that we have out there. But I believe it is a three-part process of foam rolling, stretching, and activation. I do not like when people just demonize all stretching because stretches are not created equal. Static stretching is very different than dynamic stretching, and it's all about
Yes.
knowing the purpose. And again, it goes back to systems, right? I do not think foam rolling alone works that well. I do not think stretching alone works that well. I do not even think that you get the full benefit of activation if you don't have the other two components, because all of it is about prepping the body to move well and moving it through the phases you need. When you use foam rolling, you're relaxing and releasing overactive muscles. You're sort of interrupting that mind body connection to the muscles that want to tend to take over. Okay. And so then when you do the dynamic stretching, not static stretching, but dynamic stretching, because static stretching has been shown to reduce power during your workout, but dynamic stretching, you're actually mobilizing the joint. Okay. So you're allowing that bigger range of motion. So when you then do the activation, because you've relaxed the overactive muscles, it makes it easier to establish the mind body connection to the ones that tend to be underactive. Not to mention you can actually strengthen through the full range of motion because you've warmed your body up, you've mobilized your joints with the dynamic stretching. So that's why I believe in that three-part process. Now, on a slight side tangent, when you're running, the fact that you're feeling your hamstring so much might mean that you have hamstring synergistic dominance, and we actually need to talk about your butt cheeks a little bit. But that is potentially another conversation.
No, when I
Let's talk about your butt cheeks.
when I go to the when I go to the beach, everyone talks about my butt cheeks.
Stop. But oh gosh,
That's just it's just a burden of being me.
yeah. There you go.
Everybody talks about your butt cheeks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
sorry.
those quads. He's got football player size quads for this little guy. It's
You're
really
Quadzilla.
bizarre.
Got quad
Yeah.
dominance, Quadzilla.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And our son is the same. He just ran his first marathon last weekend, and it's hilarious. He's got like this little teeny tiny waist, these giant shoulders, and these
and a
massive.
butt. He's got a butt like a girl.
Well,
It's
he's
really-
got because he did all that. He did a lot of
Well,
power.
that means that's why I would say it's probably why he's a good runner, because he's got strong glutes.
Well, he's the long distance guy. He's only 22. He did cross country in high school, and he was always the back of the pack because he can't run. He tries to do, it's a whole other tangent, but he tries to do speed work, and he's like, I don't get it. I train all summer, and then some schlep who's been sitting at home like just FaceTiming and hanging out with friends all summer, not training, and they just come in and they sprint past him without any training. He goes, it's just not fair. I'm not built that way, but that's a whole other conversation.
He was built for lifting stuff.
So I think, going back to the argument discussion you guys are having over the years, I would always tell Tim, stretching is important, but I think he's, it's the whole static stretching before an activity is not cool. I mean, just like bending over, touching your toes, trying to stretch your hamstrings by, doing split leg gymnastic type things. That's when they're cold, you're going to tear things. And the whole dynamic stretching of foam rolling activation and through movement is a totally different thing than the old fashioned bend over, touch your toes, stretch before you've even warmed up.
Well, and there's so much nuance to it too.
Exactly.
Not only are you stretching a static stretch, which can reduce power, but it's also one of these things that how we implement static stretching, I won't ever say that I sometimes use it with clients prior to working out is what I'm going to say. It's not that I don't always avoid it. And I think just to say, no, it's not useful before can be also misleading. It does reduce power. So generally we avoid it before exercise. However, if someone has an injury where they have super tight hip flexors and they don't activate their glutes, it might be necessary because the whole point is we are trying to train them to move better, right? Versus an athlete going to lift max weight. Yes, we don't want to stretch something that's going to reduce their power. And on top of that, it's also the nuance of which muscles you're stretching. I think we forget that tightness is not always an indicator that a muscle is shortened and in need of lengthening, especially in the case of our hamstrings, it's sometimes overly lengthened. So if you think about postures and positions, people sometimes have anterior pelvic tilt, they have tight hip flexors from sitting a lot, their hamstrings are actually overly lengthened and they feel tight because it's like a rubber band being stretched, right? It feels tight. And so it's one of those things that by stretching it, you're making it worse. over if we stretch the hip flexors while activating the glutes, that would actually help the hamstrings feel less tight. So there's so much nuance in how we implement stretching, and it's why it's key we really assess the movement patterns. It's why, when you go through the movements in your workouts, you're not just focused on what it looks like, but actually what you feel working. One of the best questions I ever started asking my clients was like, what do you feel working? And you'd be surprised by how many times people are like, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? You're doing the movement, right? Well, I'm looking at myself in the mirror and it looks right. Okay, but what do you feel working? Because often the more athletic to a client is, or the more experienced, or the more hypermobile they are, the more they can rest on structure and mimic a proper looking movement pattern. And our body is fabulous in that it will do what we ask it to do. However, it will use muscles or even seek mobility out of joints that it maybe shouldn't be using to perform that movement. And that's where we see the overload and injury. So
I
there's
know
so
all
much
about that.
nuance.
I mean, I'm one of those people that there's certain exercises I think of, I can name them like overhead triceps extensions or even glute bridges. And I'm like, I'm doing these and I'm feeling all these other muscles except the one I'm supposed to be working. I'm like, what the heck? Like, how do they even get that muscle to work? And, it's not that I'm any stellar athlete. It's just because I'm obviously either that muscle is obviously not firing. I'm not recruiting it. The other ones are kicking in instead. And so, yeah,
If
really
anybody should
good
hate
point.
stretching, it's you technically, because you need more stability work, because you'll go to end range of motion and you'll tend to even feel tight when you don't need to stretch anymore. It's that instability at the joints telling you. And so like the muscles feel tight because your joints are like, oh, holy cow, please, please, please don't do that. And so it's one of those things you have to do more activation. And even how we implement activation, because you're engaging one muscle through a process called reciprocal inhibition, you're actually relaxing and releasing the opposing muscle group. So when you're doing glute bridges, when you feel your glutes actually working, you're stretching your hip flexors as well. So there's so much we can do by actually focusing on what muscle is driving the movement.
And I really like, what you say is to focus on, when you're doing those activities. Yeah. Can you feel that muscle or not? To pay attention to your body. So obviously not to diagnose all my stuff. What I love about your videos, on Facebook and YouTube, is that you talk about that. It's like, it's a whole chain of kinetics. And so how to activate those muscle groups, to pay attention. I mean, even to injured areas, people think, oh yeah, my knees hurt. Well, I got a knee problem. Well, maybe not. Like, let's look at the whole chain of things. And I know physical therapists do that. Us as doctors are bad at that. Some better than others, depending on our experiences and our athletics.
You mean there's not a giant pharma company that makes a stretching pill?
What are you talking about?
Well, I mean, then we'd know all about it.
You got me all sidetracked here.
No, I know, but I mean, Pfizer's new Stretcholine
There you go.
may cause possession by the spirit of darkness.
Go to your doc and get a bill for that. Yeah.
No, I mean, but that's. I mean,
but back.
I'm sorry, I try and keep my people from seeing you guys. I'm like, doctors, just train me. I'll make you better.
Exactly.
Before you get injured or like sick or anything, we'll do all the good training.
Yes, because even going to my friendly, trusted sports med friend doc, it's we get too focused in on the pain in that joint instead of looking, elsewhere, to the hip or the ankle, the back.
Symptoms.
I mean,
we treat symptoms, not problems.
And we should know that as doctors, because how we see people all the time come in with knee pain and it's a surprise they have a bad hip, they need a hip replacement, but they're feeling it in their knee, etc. So we know in other systems, referred pain, people have appendicitis and they feel pain in funny places instead of that right lower quadrant. But somehow in athletics, we forget that. And I think people that aren't medical or trainers get focused on that one spot, leading them down the wrong.
When I ruptured my appendix, I didn't feel pain in my funny place.
Funny place.
I just felt it in my abdomen. And the morphine was pretty amazing. No.
So, hey, I got so excited at the start of this interview that I just jumped past all the stuff we usually do as far as like having you introduce your background. But I kind of want to do that now, because then I want to transition into how we can, as healthcare providers and docs, help people stay motivated, and how they can, go find things to keep them motivated past the January 19th date. So why don't we rewind a little bit? Tell everybody what you do, but your background and how you got into fitness and training and your passion and your knowledge in this?
Well, I actually own now Redefining Strength, and I'm going to take a slight tangent off of that, where I actually had a blog before Redefining Strength, before I opened the business, when I was training in Boston, which I'll get into, which was called Man Bicep, uh, which is a whole joke about how my bicep was a
Man
man
bicep.
bicep. Yes,
I love
and
it.
Ryan told me, he's like, you cannot call your gym Man Bicep. That's just not allowed. And so I actually had to think of, like, what was training for me? Like, what did health and fitness and all this stuff mean to me? And for me, it was really about redefining what strong meant to myself. It was about empowerment through exercise. It was about the ability to change your lifestyle. And I even think that little sphere of working out, like, it teaches us so much about our own ability to be uncomfortable, to push, to face adversity, and that translate into confidence in other areas of life. So that's sort of how I came up with the name. The man bicep thing was because my bicep was the average, or the size of the average man bicep, I read somewhere at the time, and I thought it was really funny. But thankfully, I like Redefining Strength better, and I think it really encapsulates what I actually want people to get out of fitness. But I started back in Boston, and I played Division I tennis, grew up playing tennis. My mom told me that playing tennis with me was more fun than playing Barbies at the age of 3, so we played tennis. I loved it. I competed at college at Boston University. I graduated from Boston University and wanted to work in sports information because I loved being an athlete for the conference. So I went to work for the America East Conference. I thought it was my dream job. Into that internship there, I realized it was not my dream job after multiple Long Island iced teas and a crying conversation to Ryan, who's now my husband. I told him I wanted to do something different. So he's like, do it. And so I went to work as a customer service rep at a gym. At that gym, I then was like, I really want to work with people. I want to make them move better. So I started doing all the research I could. I started learning everything I could. I actually got into powerlifting and became the Massachusetts Rhode Island powerlifting state champion. And then I got injured. I got a hip injury and I ended up limping around the gym for multiple weeks. It was nothing incredibly serious in that I didn't have to go get surgery or any of those things. But it did set me down the course of really learning about corrective exercise, because in my head, I'm like, I'm stronger than I've ever been. I can, move well. My movement patterns look good. I'm reviewing all these things. What the heck is going on? Because how can I be so strong and look like the movements are right and I'm injured? And so that led me into the whole recruitment versus movement, the prehab work that you need, the actual mind body connection, and establishing that. From that, I thought I wanted to work with athletes, but my corrective exercise nerddom didn't quite fit with that. And athletes are their own beast. I realized
takes a special person to work with athletes, right?
And I like athletes, but it was just, I wanted more dysfunctional people like me. And as we talked about, if we put the fun in dysfunctional, but it's one of those things that I wanted to really help people understand their movement patterns and how to move their best. So I got into corrective exercise. I explored just about every avenue. Sometimes being thrown into classes that I wasn't good at teaching, like kickboxing and cardio kickboxing. But through that, taking on any group classes that came my way, I learned about Pilates and yoga and all the different ways that these different modalities were being used to help people move better. And so through that, sort of created my own systems that I felt worked by testing them on clients. Yes, I used my clients as guinea pigs in the best possible way, and on myself. And
so does Pfizer.
So does Pfizer.
Well, I like to think I do it in a very ethical way.
Yes, he does.
It's changing things up too. And
So you didn't make $35 billion in the last 6 months?
Not yet. I don't make any promises about what's going to happen in the next 6, because everybody's just now going to want the foam rolling, stretching, and activation secrets.
That's right.
Absolutely.
It's not a magic pill.
It's going to be amazing.
Hey, I will 100% admit you got to put in the work, but I will give you all the secrets. And I'll tell you right now, the secret is being intentional.
We gotta talk about secret knowledge at some point, because that just makes me insane. But go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, my secret knowledge right now, I will tell you, and it goes into what, as any practitioner trying to help people, we can do. Tell people to be realistic about their lifestyle and get in it for the long haul and be intentional. That's the secret right there. The point when you want to quit is probably the point you should keep going. All the secrets. That was knowledge bombs being dropped, and they're so sexy. I know it's always the unsexy stuff that we don't want to hear. That's actually the truth.
But it's super fascinating, because I read this excellent article about the COVID spikes, and this guy wrote this article, and he said people quit at exactly the time when it's the best time to like not quit. So the reason stocks plunge to a certain degree and then completely crater is because people can only suffer for so long. And they're like, okay, I'll just take my loss. And at least the emotional pain of watching that stock crater is gone, when actually that's the time to buy. Right. And so you look at these COVID spikes and it goes up, 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 up. And people are like, okay, I'll do anything. I'll wear a mask. I'll get 10 vaccines. I'll do whatever. Just make the pain stop. When really that's just at the crest when it actually gets better on its own. And it's exactly the same in this scenario, right? Where it's like when you just feel, I
when
can't
the pain
take
is starting
it anymore.
is when the real work is happening. Yeah.
Right. I mean, when I ran marathons, it was always 18 miles. 18 miles was when I was like still running fairly fast. It wasn't the total pain cave. And I was still cognizant enough to go, I'm an idiot. Why am I doing this? And every race was, I'm an idiot. Why am I doing this? I'd push through, I'd achieve a goal. And then I was like, man, that's the greatest thing ever. I can't wait to sign up for the next race. You know, that was 5 minutes after the race.
It's kind of an interesting phenomenon, and I do have clients that see results very quickly, but I also see it as a lot of times in the week 1 to 8, let's just say, you want those results. You're working really hard. You've made all these really incredibly difficult changes, and you want the results to happen fastest. And that's often when they don't happen as fast as we feel we deserve. And at that like 6 to 8 week mark, so many people want to give up. And I actually had one client be like, "This is the time I usually give up," and I'm like, "You can't give up." I was like, "I know you're telling me this because you want me to remind you of that, but you can't give up because giving up is why you've never seen the results." And she pushed through, and she was amazed at how many changes accumulated just in the next 4 weeks. So 8 to 12. And it was one of these things that it's not that all of a sudden she was doing something magical in weeks 8 to 12. It was the snowball effect from all those weeks prior. And so if I could remind people of anything, it's that those results take time to build, and they really are accumulating under the surface. You are that duck, and those feet are going and going and going, and you can't see it maybe, but they're going. And so the more you actually give stuff time to build and like results to snowball, the more you'll be surprised by how after that point you want to quit, all of a sudden it's just like you snap your fingers and changes are happening. But it's not the immediate, it's all the previous work.
So you got any, I mean, the biggest thing for, I have friends that just can barely even get the shoes on and get motivated, to people who are very athletic motivated, but they plateau. And then, you're going and going and not seeing anything happen. And it's just, you kind of slide back and like, eh. I mean, are there any secrets, tips to help that motivation hump, just to keep going, to push through that difficult time? I mean, I don't know. I used to tell people just put the exercise gear on or put the shoes on and even just walk around the house, or the little things to get people in that mindset. I mean, it might be oversimplistic, but is there any kind of things that pop out in your head that you use with people to get them motivated from like either the couch to moving, or people that are really athletic and are on that plateau?
Well, I always like to be brutally honest and tell them that motivation is very fleeting and they won't always be motivated. And because I think a lot of times we feel like we're the only one that isn't motivated at a point, and it's just not the case. I also like to remind people that we are not motivated by gain, we're motivated by pain. Because the thing is like getting to that ultimate goal, it sounds really good, right? In theory, you think it's motivating you, but you have no idea how that feels. What actually motivated you to make the change is the pain you're in right now, the pain you're feeling, the situation. So instead of creating a vision board for yourself, create an anti-vision board. Like I know so many people are like, oh, this is the physique I want, and they post a picture, or this is the mile time I want, and they post that. No, post the thing you didn't like to remind yourself anytime you want to give up of the pain that you experienced. And it sounds really negative because you're like, well, crap, I don't like that situation. But that pain will remind you of why you want to make the hard changes. Because I'm sorry, change is hard. Being stuck is hard. Being in your current situation is hard. Basically, in this life, you get to pick your suck. And that kind of sucks, but you get to pick your suck. And I'd rather it was a productive suck than a stuck suck, right? At least there's hope with the other one.
That's our motto. Yes.
Yeah.
We always say pick your pain. I mean, it's going to be the pain of like doing mile 20 to the marathon, or it's going to be the pain of you hurt, you feel like crap of just sitting around doing nothing. But I like to pick, pick your suck.
This is really good, because I was going to call complete BS on motivation before you just did that.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, it's the David Goggins thing, right? It's like, you won't break me. And I don't know if you know anything about him. He was the guy that was like fat, out of shape, lost like 100 pounds in 3 months or some ridiculous thing, and became a Navy SEAL. And so his whole thing is, it's going to hurt. So life hurts.
Well, I was going to say
And-
anything. I mean, look at getting through anything horrible. Med school. I mean, do you think we want to sit there and like read these textbooks and like study on the weekend and everybody's going out? It's like, I had no motivation to do that, but it's not about motivation as much as
No,
it's discipline, right? And I guess
Yeah,
would that be the word? Is like
Well-
you just have to, sometimes you have to just make yourself go through the motions and do it even when you don't want to.
the word I like is ritual.
Oh, there you go.
Ritual is what saves people. I mean, and is it religious? Yeah, it is. And you actually have faith that the ritual is going to change who you are. And it does if you stick with it. And that's the thing that's really amazing. It's like, once you've brushed your teeth for 15 years, you're going to brush your teeth for the next 15 years because you just do it. And
Let's hope.
and it's, and now getting through to that point where it becomes more automatic is the part that's very difficult. But
that's where the pain of staying where you are can't outweigh the pain of change. You've got to make the pain of change less painful than the pain of staying stuck. And that's sometimes breaking things down into small things so that you can ingrain those little rituals. Because like the thing is like, let's just say you don't brush your teeth, you don't floss, you don't do something else good for your oral hygiene, right? If you tell someone, go do all these things every single day, that's potentially, yes, maybe it's only like 15 minutes that they're adding on, but it's a lot of changes, right? If you say, hey, I want you to brush your teeth for 30 seconds today, every day this week. Okay. And then they start doing it and it's like nothing. Oh, maybe now I can add on flossing, or maybe now I can brush longer, or maybe now I can do something else that's good. Like it's one of those things that I think we have to make the pain of change less painful. And that means breaking things down. No matter how much we tell ourselves, I'm an all or nothing person. No, you're not. That's why you keep starting over saying you're an all or nothing person. It's like if you just think one small change, it's going to make the pain of change a lot less than the pain of staying stuck. And that's going to lead to the ritual.
did you read the book, The Power of Habit?
I have not.
You absolutely have to read that because the guy goes through. I forget.
Is that Gladwell?
No. That's not Gladwell. But you need. We'll put it on our show notes. It's fast. It's a super fascinating book because he goes through and looks at neuroscience on how people form and have habits, and then how do you modify that and what's the actual neuroscience behind it, and then how like corporations use track your habits online to like push advertise to you and all that, and this book was written about 10 years ago. So that's way more advanced now than it was, but stuff that's really interesting. Like there's this guy who had some sort of brain tumor and they took out, whatever part of his brain, and he essentially lost all short-term memory. So it was like a switch. He had normal short-term memory. No, actually, he had only short-term memory. I'm sorry. He had only no. It's exactly the opposite of Alzheimer's. He had only short-term memory and no long-term memory. Okay. So, he didn't remember who his wife was. He didn't remember who his kids were. He didn't remember what he did for his career, et cetera, et cetera. So like totally horrible. And so they bring him home and they put him in his house and he did exactly the same things he did before he had the surgery. So no long-term memory. And he would get up and he would go to the bathroom at the same place, and he would turn the TV to the same channel, and he would get the same drink out of the fridge every single day. And they're like, what did you just watch? I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And why are you doing it? I have absolutely no idea. And the point is that habits, like true habits, are so ingrained down in your brainstem at a subconscious level that once you form them, I mean, they did deep neural stimulation on this guy. He was like going to drink himself to absolutely death. They did deep neural stimulation. He had absolutely zero desire for alcohol. They followed up with him in like 2 or 3 years. They said, what did you do after work? Oh, I went home and had a few beers. Why? Well, that's just what I do. It was just like, that habit formation is so unbelievably powerful and so beyond what we normally, think. It's like, just white knuckle it, or I'll just try hard. I'll just think my way through it. That you have to understand that it's painful. You have to make it bite-sized and the way, bite-sized pieces to, start to formulate those new neural pathways. But the other side of that, and this is what really motivates me, is he or she who suffers best suffers least. So the suffering of eating less and weighing less and working out and whatever, that suffering is way better than the downstream suffering of what that cost me. And that to me, that every time I kind of slip up, I'm like, okay, no, that's the key. What suffering do you want? Because you're going to suffer. So just deal with it.
I was gonna say, even like if you think about the line, like, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. I read that the other day, and like instantly I got kind of like angry at it, because I was like, that is just so false. If you love what you do, all the things you don't like that you have to do in pursuit of it are just worth it. And I think it's like we've got to change this mindset that it's all about willpower, it's all about motivation. Like, someone has more willpower or self-control. No, they don't. Like, I can tell you, there's some days I wake up, my self-control is gone by like hour one in the day, right? It's not that I have more willpower or self-control. It's that I have created routines and habits based on assessing who I am in the times where I am motivated, right? Or I've made the habits or routines so easy that I don't need willpower to recreate. Or it's that I've reminded myself of the suffering now to implement them is worth it. It's not really willpower. It's the reminder that suffering is worth it for the ultimate goal. But I mean, we do have this idea, like, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, right? That something shouldn't be hard. And that's just, it's not the case. It's hard. It's always going to be hard.
We all get to be like Oprah.
You know, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's the Oprahfication of the world,
Yeah.
right? Just speak to the universe, and the universe will speak back to you. And I'm just like, yeah, but the universe just told me I'm an asshole. So what am I supposed to do with the universe now?
Oh, go look at all the hard work she has put in, and tell me that she didn't earn every single thing.
Exactly. So here I have a couple quick thoughts. I mean, we could talk forever, because I'm like, let's go down the diet, the macros. But as far as motivating, I think this is really awesome to help clinicians, physicians, people in the healthcare world to help speak better to their patients and clients, to help motivate them and focus more. What do you tell the person? I'm thinking of a particular someone who never grew up like really moving their body, wasn't ever in dance or fitness. They're middle-aged, so I'm getting unhealthy weight, and never really liked exercise. It's like, yeah, I don't like it. There's not enough negative pain in their life yet, to pick the pain, because it's like, I don't have diabetes. I'm not feeling awful. And trying to convince that person it's important to move. I mean, it's one thing, like we talked about brushing your teeth. I mean, it's like, yeah, it's going to prevent cavities, and so it's in the future, but yet they don't have a rotten tooth enough to motivate them. So for exercise, if someone really, I have lots of people and friends who really just don't like it. They hate sweating. They hate feeling uncomfortable. Any thoughts or tips to, like, other than, yeah, it's going to be worth it in the end, you got to get moving?
I like to start them with walking. Like, go have a social gathering, go for a group walk, and then even have brunch after. Like, associate it with something else that's a fun activity you like to do, and just do it as movement. Walking is so underutilized as a tool to get moving and to make people move better. Like, they've even shown that people who are deconditioned, especially as we get older, if we just go walk, that's enough resistance to help us start building muscle. And the thing is when they start to move more, it's a case of the more you do, the more you do. An object at rest tends to stay at rest. So the more you do, the more you do. And that's in a negative and a positive direction. If you do a lot of sitting on the couch, trust me, you're going to want to sit on the couch a lot more and not do anything. But if you get walking and you feel good, and then it's that fun activity with friends, you might be like, well, hey, why don't we all go try this activity? Or, hey, why don't we try this class? And it's one of those things that through that, and through that social aspect too, and through associating with other fun things, I think it can really motivate us to want to do more in that positive direction.
You could walk from bar to bar.
Hey, it's a start. Just work the alcohol into your macros. You're good.
That's right. And then we're going to walk to the casino.
There you go. Yeah. It's literally just do it. The Nike, I hate to use it, but it's just do something, because, and that's what I always tell I would try to tell friends, patients too, as far as the diet part, because I always think that's the harder part for people, is sometimes because they're all fixated on the exercise, is that once you're just moving and starting to feel better and you're doing the exercise, then you'll want to eat better, like naturally. You just don't want to put the junk in. So for the person that doesn't even want to move, I mean, it's kind of an object in motion, it stays in motion, like you said. And it's just, once you get going, it's like, hey, this is all right. I can go a little further. Let's do this a little more. Let's hope. I mean,
It's what's easiest too. Like too often we think, okay, what's the ideal working out? What's the ideal diet? What's the ideal whatever? I like to ask clients, I'm like, okay, so what's one of the easiest changes? Like it could feel ridiculous easy, you know, you can do it right now. What's one thing? You know, can
Yep.
you stand up and do a chest stretch in the doorway right now? You know, can we just have you drink a little bit more water? Like, what's the easiest thing to do? Because the second you do that, you're like, oh, I feel kind of good that I did this. I succeeded. Versus if you hate exercise, you go exercise, and then you're so sore you can't exercise the next day. It's like you don't ever build that momentum. You don't feel successful from it. You have no desire to do it. Like, we have to remember it relates back to our mindset. And if we can't find something we enjoy doing, even if it's a small change, it's so easy. We don't even know if we enjoy it. It's just easy, right? That will build the momentum. So think like literally right now, what's one thing you can do?
So you don't stand
Love
over
it.
your clients screaming, "Do you want it? Do you want it? You
Oh, I
want
do
it?"
that. I get flicked off all the time. You know, that's fine. I'll be mean to you if you need tough love. I have no problem being mean to you.
Harder.
I know. I wrote something on one of our Facebook posts about, yeah, but I'm like 55 and I've had all these injuries and I'm too old. She's like, stop it. You're not too old.
Oh, I had
Don't use
someone
that
come
excuse.
in. No, I was gonna say I had somebody who was over 60 come into the gym and she's like, I can't do pull-ups. And I'm like, okay, go show me. I'm like, why can't you do pull-ups? Well, I'm 60. I don't care that you're 60, and that doesn't make any difference. Go show me how you can do pull-ups. Okay, we're gonna get you to a pull-up. Like I've had clients try and get out of rope climbs because of their age, monkey bars. I'm like, nah, you need to learn how to do it. Fitness is about ability. We'll always meet you where you're at, but your age is just a number. You know, what you've had add up into this point that has the aches and pains, fine, we'll deal with it. But I don't care. I have clients that are 90 plus who are just freaking rock stars, and I have clients that are 30 that are so broken. I'm like, what have you done to yourself? We must rebuild. But you know, it's
Yes.
just you got to build
No,
from where you're at.
it is amazing. You know, like how old was Jack LaLanne when he died? Like 95 or 99, and he was still swimming. And then he got a treatable pneumonia and didn't go to the hospital for antibiotics, and then he died. So there is a place for medical science as well.
Yes. So how about deciding when you should get started on your own, how you should, or when you should incorporate a trainer? So, I mean, if someone's never gotten off their ass, do they need to get a trainer to teach them, or somebody that's working out and plateauing? What are your thoughts on when and how to incorporate a fitness trainer?
I think it's always about knowing yourself and how much you're going to do the research and really seek to learn and how much you embrace changes on your own. I always think it's better to have a coach to start. And I say this as somebody who's been very much a believer in being their own lone wolf through everything, right? I felt like I had to learn it, otherwise it wouldn't be good. But in my advanced years now, I've learned that by having a coach, a lot of times you can't avoid pitfalls. You have to mentally be ready for the coach to embrace all the changes they're going to give you. And so if you're not ready for that, you're going to waste your money or time. But too often I see clients or hear clients say, I need to get in better shape before I hire a trainer. And the thing is that's false, because building that foundation is one of the most important parts. And if you can't learn to build that foundation strong, you're building your house on quicksand, and then you're going to have issues later. So better, if you're not sure what you're doing, if you need that extra accountability and push, have that mentorship in your body early on to go like off on your own afterwards. But that way you'll be solid in everything. I mean, there's never a right or wrong time, and it is assessing what you're going to be receptive to. But it's not admitting you can't do it on your own to hire somebody. It's wanting to do it the most efficient way.
I mean, I've been guilty of that because, because in my lifetime, and I've had multiple orthopedic injuries lately in the last 5 years and surgeries, but I'm like, I was in such better shape before. So yeah, I'm going to like rehab myself and get in better shape before I then invest money in a coach or a trainer. And I think that's a common thought for people, is like, I'm not fit enough to even warrant a coach or a trainer. So
Yeah,
then you get,
like when
then
I
it's
was
a self
right. It's like
losing profit.
It's like when I was 8 and I'd be going to the dentist for a checkup and a cleaning, and I'd say to my mom, "Why do I need to brush my teeth before I go to the dentist? They're going to clean them anyways, aren't they?" And then I became a doctor, and I understood the wisdom of my mother's words.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
You got to pay that rent daily, right? To keep things up.
That's right.
Well, okay, we got to have you back, because I'm already thinking of so many other world. Yeah, the macros, the clean eating, the bad eating, to even just injuries and rehabbing. But tell everybody what platforms you're on and where they can find you.
I am creepily everywhere. You can find me at Redefining Strength on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest. I have my website, redefiningstrength.com, and you can even email me at Cori at redefiningstrength.com, and I'm pretty receptive to anything. So hit me up. I'm a nerd. I'd love to talk about
Do you
anything
do
diet and
online
exercise.
training
I'll link
for
all those. And you
people
have oh, go ahead.
of approximately my height and weight and age?
You know exactly your height and weight and age. Exactly that. And yes, I'm very biased in thinking so, but I have a fabulous online training program, a variety of different levels. And when I push the coaching, it's because I've seen the difference it really makes. And I actually started my online coaching because I had originally just had sort of done for you programs for people. And I got very frustrated by the number of people that were buying them. And when I check in later on, had not started them. So I think it's key we know ourselves so that we actually implement everything. And now I have the coaching to be a little bit more bossy, we'll say.
I love it. And then you have the YouTube as well. I mean, training videos there, programs, as well as, looking at injuries. I love it.
We were going to start YouTube, and then we just quit because they take our stuff down.
Well, that's because it's all the bad C
It's
related.
the C word.
Yeah.
So.
I live in the realm of the dictatorship of Cori. It's what I tell my clients in the gym. All we are here for is health and fitness and exercise, and we're focusing on that. I stay safe in my dictatorship.
You got the healthy C word.
Yeah, that's good because we've been immersed in another world for the last 2 years, and it's not pleasant to say the least.
Perfect. So if someone's interested in following you online, I'll link all of those. If they want to reach out to you, we'll put that in as well, how they can get a hold of you. And thank you so much for being here. This has been super fun. And
I've loved every second. Thank you.
I think this is going to be.
Yeah, no, we
really
absolutely
helpful.
need to have you back. People will be like begging for this. And, and even we can do something specifically on, if you were a doctor and someone came in with X, Y, and Z problem, how would you approach it in a way that would be maybe more encouraging to them than just say, you're fat and you're going to die?
Because that's definitely what you want to tell someone, something very negative and not at all proactive or productive,
Exactly.
I'm sure that's what you tell your patients all the time.
We'll swap roles. Yeah, you could play doctor and we'll play fitness coach. That'll be crazy. Oh, man.
Uh-oh.
All right.
I see some drill sergeants. I see some drill sergeants in the future.
Love it. All right. Thanks again, Cori.
Thank you both.
That was great. We'll definitely have her on again, for sure, because there's just so much. You get into the motivational side. The diet side is huge. We barely touched on that.
Yes, I want her back so we can touch on macros, get more into the nitty-gritty of what that is and how it goes. It reminds me of when I took what was the word for way back in the day? My brain finding words. Home ec and nutrition back in the day when we learned about protein, fat, and carbs. It's really pretty basic, but I guess we're getting back to that now, and we call it macros, and how balancing that out is pretty basic and important, but a lot of people don't get that. I think we've lost that somewhere along the cereal aisle, the frozen food aisle, and the American cheese wraps.
Well, what happens is diets become cults faster than cults become cults.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like it's, it really is amazing.
Anyway, I can't wait to
So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into a lot of that.
Have her back to discuss that for sure.
With regards to the cultiness.
Meanwhile, I think you should be our human guinea pig to undergo training with Cori and see how you can transform your body.
It shouldn't be that fun.
Well, that was awesome. And before we end, don't forget to reach out to Michael Relvis, our sponsor at MR Insurance, where their goal is to assist physicians in obtaining the most comprehensive coverage available to fit their unique situation. Reach out for both excellent and quality service to Michael at mrinsurance.com/BSFreeMD. So, link in the show notes. See you guys next time.
Absolutely. See you next week.
It's no secret that medicine is a bit, uptight. That's why Tim and I created BS Free MD, to mix things up a little and have fun in the process. Besides, we are having these exact same discussions all the time, so we thought we might as well invite everyone to the party. If you really like us, you can get plenty more, and maybe see one of Tim's cool tattoos on our Instagram or Facebook pages. at BS Free MD. See you next time.
Well, we try to keep BS Free MD as raw and real as possible. We can't be held responsible for any medical decisions or discussions had as a result of what you've heard on the show. We know, bummer. But the truth is, we really do care about your questions. So feel free to reach out to us by email at doc@bsfreemd.com.
Yeah, Tim's body is the sacrificial guinea pig is a great bloop.
For Cori's torture chamber. So when she trains me, do I have to wear a ball gag?
No, I want you to wear a thong.
A ball gag.
No, or a sumo wrestling diaper.
I could do that. But if you're going to be trained to be a sumo wrestler, I'm going to be eating an awful lot more and gaining a whole bunch more weight.
Sushi? They don't.
It's hard to get fed on sushi.
You're not going to train to be a sumo wrestler?
Why not?
Wow.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
I think it's out of vogue. They don't even have that anymore.
Well, I think they do.